Hey everyone. I was going to do this, I was planning to do this after work yesterday, kind of live stream it, but unfortunately I couldn't do that because of the fact that, well, let's just put it this way. Things just didn't work out. The timing didn't, but anyway, I wanted to do this because I saw a video that Saberspark had done last year, and that was basically asking the question of what ruined Cartoon Network, or what's ruining Cartoon Network, and Boomerang for that matter. I can tell you from personal experience, I remember back in the early 90s, around late 91, mostly throughout 92, that there was a lot of hype going into Cartoon Network. Everybody was hyping it up, saying this is a historic thing happening. This is the first ever 24-hour cartoon network, first ever 24-hour network solely made for cartoons. And everybody from all ages, from what I can tell, I was excited about it. I was excited about it. The only thing was, my family and I were going through a lot of stuff at the time. We were moving back and forth from the Midwest, from here in the West to the Midwest and back again, stuff like that. So I caught it at times when I could, but just couldn't really, watch it as much as I'd like. I mean, like I said, I did catch it at times when I could, but not as much as I would like to. I remember when I moved out to the Midwest to live with my father for a while, his cable network that he had, or his cable provider, I should say, that he had, they didn't carry Cartoon Network for some odd reason. And they were some kind of cable company that was way out in the middle of nowhere almost. I mean, they were legit. But it's like one of the offices was like way out in the middle of nowhere or somewhere like that. It was in a city, a small town, but it was like way out in the middle of nowhere. Far out there, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, for some reason, you would think all cable providers at that time, cable companies, would be up to date with most of the cable channels. But this one wasn't. For some reason, it didn't have Cartoon Network. Heck, it didn't have USA Network. So that was a surprise, if you will, to me. But yeah, they didn't have any of that, which was upsetting. So I ended up not watching Cartoon Network for that long. The only time I would catch it, like I said, the only other times I would catch it was when me and my dad would travel by car out here to California to visit family for the holidays or for my birthday. Or we would, well, really, that was about it. Like I said, I'd either catch it at the hotels sometimes, or I would catch it when I would stay with family, or stay in the hotel in the area where my family was, stuff like that. I really didn't have much option. I mean, I knew it existed, and I was always hoping, oh, they're going to put Cartoon Network, this provider's going to put Cartoon Network on there. And anytime they added a new channel, I kept hoping, because, even though it was like, a cable provider I didn't really know much about, they at least provided updates, like what channels they were going to add. Unfortunately, they really didn't start adding on new channels or new anything until I think after I moved out, which was crazy. That's the only other time that they provided anything, and it was very surprising that they did that. But when I did move out, and I ended up getting cable where I was, even after, you know, about a year or two, I'd say about 2 years after I moved out, um, all of a sudden we couldn't get cable the way we used to at my apartment. Long story short, I still got cable. I still got like I still got all the channels. I think I had HBO and Showtime. I'm not really sure. But we ended up getting the channels and everything. I still ended up getting the channels. But it was in a way that basically I could record stuff off of my DVD recorder, but I couldn't, how do I put this? I couldn't do pay-per-view anymore. Basically what was happening at the time is a lot of stuff was slowly starting to go into that digital range to where it is now, a more up-to-date digital range, that the apartment complex where I lived needed to be updated cable-wise for any of us in that complex to get any kind of, any chance at watching pay-per-views or watching any other channel that we could only get through digital. So long story short, one of the things I was glad we were still able to keep was a lot of the cable channels that we had before. One of them being Cartoon Network, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Cartoon Network. I enjoyed finally having it, being able to finally watch it. And as a matter of fact, one of the DVDs that I have that I recorded a lot of shows off Cartoon Network, I'm looking at right now, is Laugh Olympics. Truth be told, when I recorded Laugh Olympics, here's the truth. When I recorded Laugh Olympics, I recorded it when I didn't have a DVD recorder at the time. I had a VHS player, a VCR. So I was able to record it onto my VHS tapes, and then slowly but surely I transferred it over to DVD. I slowly transferred it over to DVD. I also had help from Rafaela, a friend of mine online that I met called Rafaela XD. She helped me out, I think, kind of transfer some of the episodes to VCD, make it a little easier, but most of the time I think I took some of the episodes I had and put them on DVD as well. So I did that. I also was able to record several other things off Cartoon Network, like when they did Josie and the Pussycats Marathon because of the movie. I was able to get some episodes out of that. Thought I heard something. Probably just our cat. Like I said, I was able to, get some episodes onto DVD through my recorder off of Cartoon Network, stuff like that. So I was able to, have a good time watching the Cartoon Network. And I can kind of... There we go. Yeah, it was my cat. It was all cat she wanted in. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, sorry for the interruptions, is I enjoyed watching Cartoon Network. I really did. Now, I'm not going to say everything. I'm not going to mention everything that Saberspark said in his review. I'm not going to say all of that. If you want to check it out, I'll provide a link down below. But basically, he mentioned all the different errors that Cartoon Network went through. And I can kind of understand where he's coming from. I can understand the frustration from him, a lot of other people, about what Cartoon Network has gone through, what it's become, what it's trying to be, what it became, what it's, basically, what I'm saying is I can understand where he's coming from. Like, I can understand the whole, oh, well, this is what's happening, da da da, this is what's occurred, da da da, like, what it became, what it became, what it was, what it's trying to be once again, all these different moments and eras it went through, its ups and its downs and stuff, and I can completely understand that. The same thing with Boomerang. As a matter of fact, when I look at Boomerang, I look at a network, a spin-off of Cartoon Network, and I look at it, I look at that and I'm like, wait a minute. Here's a show here's a spin-off of Cartoon Network that they had created. They had created Boomerang because Cartoon Network was starting to slowly go into a direction where, as he mentioned in his video, in 1994 they had founded their own studios, their own studio, their own Cartoon Network studios, and they were able to start producing different Cartoon Network original shows from that. So they were starting to build a foundation, a base for their own original programming. And by doing that, as well as acquiring other animated properties, they knew eventually, from a business sense, that they needed a place to put all these classic shows that they realized, from what I can tell, from a business sense, they realized that a lot of people still like these shows. A lot of people, one of the main reasons they tuned into Cartoon Network is because of the classic animated stuff that they had. So they realized they needed a new home for it if they were going to start building Cartoon Network with a lot of originality, a lot of original programming. So that's where Boomerang came in. Boomerang came in around the late 90s, early 2000s, as a place where a lot of the classic cartoons that helped, put Cartoon Network on the map, so to be the founding fathers and mothers, and basically the foundation in which the network was built on. They knew, like I said, they knew people were still invested in watching those on Cartoon Network, so they realized they needed a place to put them as they were starting to put their own original programming, focusing on new original programming and new acquired licensed programming on Cartoon Network. And that's where, like I said, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Boomerang came into play, because now they had a place to put all that classic programming. And it worked. Unfortunately, the one thing about Boomerang was, just like before, when I lived in Oskaloosa, the cable provider I had, even like right now with Comcast, did not provide, in the area I'm living in, did not provide Boomerang. And I could never understand why. The only way we were ever able to get Boomerang was when Cartoon Network would dedicate, on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, weekend mornings basically, they would dedicate 1 or 2 hours, mainly 2 hours, to Boomerang, to programming you would see on Boomerang. And that would be stuff like Josie and the Pussycats, that would be stuff like Space Ghost, that would be stuff like Laugh Olympics, that would be stuff like Herculoids, that would be stuff like the Snorks, because yes, they had the Snorks, or be things like Pac-Man, the Hanna-Barbera Pac-Man, stuff like that. They would dedicate those 2 hours to a variety of programming. to kind of give you a taste of what Boomerang's had to offer. And they were doing this even as far as, I think, the mid-2000s they were doing this. Because, in a sense, Boomerang was still relatively new. Unfortunately, what happened is Boomerang, just like Cartoon Network, started to go through a lot of transitions, and they too, along with Cartoon Network, were going through a lot of different errors, a lot of different changes, a lot of different ups and downs, to the point that Boomerang, even today, is now more of a hybrid of not just what made Boomerang what it was originally, but now it's home to a lot of the established Cartoon Network shows that you already see on Cartoon Network. Now you see on Boomerang. You know, a lot of people complain about Teen Titans Go, which is basically the number one most popular show they got going, I guess, as on the network. It's also transitioned over to Boomerang. It's like if one network wasn't enough, it's going over there. And it's the same with other shows, like Wabbit. You know, it's good. Wabbit, which premiered on both networks. You know, and the same with the new rebooted Powerpuff Girls. The same when Scooby-Doo did Mystery Incorporated. The same thing with what else is there? Bonacula is on there. It started to be more of a hybrid home Boomerang. Boomerang, that is. It started to be more of a hybrid of the classics and the moderns. More like what made Cartoon Network, what Cartoon Network was originally founded on, like I mentioned, and what Boomerang was founded on when it came out, is now becoming that hybrid of what you're seeing on Cartoon Network now. You're also seeing on Boomerang, like Adventures of Gumball, Adventure Time, you know, Steven Universe. You're not just seeing those on Cartoon Network. You're now seeing those here. You're now seeing those on Boomerang, and I think when people notice that, a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute. I thought one was supposed to be for one type of, you know, cartoon, or one type of, you know, what I'm saying is a lot of fans, a lot of people, adults, kids and all that, adolescents, teens, a lot of them look at this and they're like, wait a minute, I thought Boomerang was supposed to be for the classic stuff and Cartoon Network was supposed to be for the more up-to-date stuff. And that's true. But I think what happened is you had so much of a changing of the guard behind the scenes that there was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of mixed signals, and thus we're in the position with both networks that, you know, you can kind of see they're trying to rebuild, mostly like with Cartoon Network, they're trying to rebuild and make it what it once was. But with Boomerang, it's like maybe they're trying to do it too, but not as much. And like I said, I think behind the scenes, when a lot of changing of the guard behind the scenes and everything, it doesn't really help. You know, the person that a lot of people blame right now is Christine Miller. You know, a lot of people feel she's not doing things correctly. It's like she's dedicating, and it's like she's focusing primarily on 4 to 5 shows, for Cartoon Network, and that's it. Like she's making Cartoon Network a 4 to 5 shows network only, and that's it. And the same could probably be said for Boomerang. But that doesn't seem the case, because it looks like she's less focused on Boomerang and more focused on Cartoon Network. And one thing that Saberspark brought out was one of the shows that primarily, and I mentioned this earlier, that gets focused on a lot on Cartoon Network is Teen Titans Go, because it's its most popular program. I mean, Saberspark pointed out that right here on YouTube, the Cartoon Network YouTube app